Cool. Well, so I guess we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us tonight for the Austin Mobile and Web Game Dev Meetup. We're kind of in the opposite side tonight, so things are a little more spread out and feels more empty. But thanks for coming, and we have some great talks tonight that I'm looking forward to. We're going to have Gary Wagner from Wetjen Games talking about his free-to-play tower defense game that they're working on. And also we have Spence and Christian, I don't know which you prefer.
They're both good.
From Togga, talking about their soccer, their online fantasy soccer game. So should be exciting. So just a few words, I guess, at the beginning. Definitely, keep an eye out for future events. Usually these are on the fourth Tuesday of the month. This one is on a slightly different day of the month for various scheduling reasons, but for subsequent months, we should be back on that regular fourth Tuesday kind of schedule. So keep an eye out for those. And also, we are going to occasionally be having these kind of show and tell type of events where people can have the opportunity to get up and talk about sort of work in progress or like an alpha state of what they're working on and get feedback and that kind of thing, shorter talks. So if you or someone you know is interested in kind of showing off something that you've been working on, definitely get in touch with me and let me know. You can reach me through the meetup.com group where it just says contact organizer. If you click on that, you can email me and I'll get back to you. So yeah, that's that. Also, at the beginning of each of these, I give a little opportunity for everybody to say if they're looking for collaborators or wanting to hire someone for a position to do some sort of game development work. So I don't know if anybody has any particular positions they're looking to fill or collaborators that they're wanting to meet. Feel free to stand up and say hello.
So we're looking for, we do web stuff, so we're looking for a front-end guy, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then we're also looking for a back-end guy, basically layout, so like PHP, MySQL, Apache, Linux, things like that. Spence, after the show.
Anyone else?
Just real briefly, although it's kind of getting down to the wire here, but we're always looking for some good contract artists. Just little pickup stuff now. We're in beta, so but it seems like they're difficult to find and hold on to. Yeah, 2D and 3D. Somebody who knows Unity is preferable as well.
Cool.
Let's see me tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're looking for a Unity front end, C++ back end.
Great. Anyone else? That sounds like it. So I guess, yeah, first up we're going to have Gary Wagner speak, and he's actually going to be showing some demo bits of his game, and it's going to be up on this one TV here, so if you're seated in the back and that's too far away for you, feel free to move up so you can get a better view. It might be kind of small on the screen, global game, and all that stuff, but yeah, so I guess feel free to take it away.
Great, thanks.
Check. Whoa. Hi there. My name is Gary Wagner, and I've been producing video games for about 20 years now. I started way back in the day with the early Activision, when Activision was the new Activision, when that was about a year and a half since Bobby Kotick had bought it out of bankruptcy. So those were fun days way back then. And I actually had a game company prior to this one, after I left Activision, called Gizmo Games in Los Angeles, and produced and directed a Star Trek title called Deep Space Nine Dominion Wars. And then I went on to produce the original Supreme Commander game. I don't know if any of you guys have played that. as well as Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. So done a lot of strategy, real-time strategy games in the past, and then before coming out to Austin, I came out here to help establish a new company for Kabam, the big mobile free-to-play company out of San Francisco, and helped to build the new company and build the team and produce the first title called the Imperium Galactic War. And that was, we built a new team and an MMO in 8 months. So it was full, it was an space empire builder, full synchronous combat. So I was just really proud of all those projects that I've worked on, and then it really seemed like it was time to do my own thing again. So I'm really focused on Warp 10 Games is the new company, and we're focused on mobile, kind of mid-core mobile free-to-play type games. This one in particular called Tanks vs. Bombs is a combination of tower defense, and then I threw in some real-time strategy elements to it. This is Adam. Adam's our lead programmer, and we've just been cranking away on this and wanted to show it to you guys. So feel free to stop me if you have any questions. Before I get going, I've been also working on the first developer diary video, so I'm going to run that and just get some feedback on that from you guys too. This is like a world premiere too, so no one's ever seen this. See how it goes. Hi, I'm Wagner. I've been producing video games for many years. I was the producer of the original Supreme Commander game and also the executive producer for Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. I have a new game that I'm developing. It's a mobile, free-to-play tower defense style game called Tanks vs. Bombs. The concept behind Tanks vs. Bombs was I wanted to develop a game in a known genre, and I wanted to add some really cool gameplay elements and gameplay mechanics to what was out there currently. I wanted this to be the most kick-ass tower defense game going. You have real-time weapons that you use as a swipe. We have guided missiles, grenades. You can upgrade as you go, more powerful and more accurate weapons. Other elements that I'm bringing to this are RTS elements. So I wanted that really exciting gameplay to happen on your iPhone and iPad. You can put your towers out, they can get destroyed. You have a command center which needs to be healed. Your towers can be healed, they can be upgraded. If you're a fan of tower defense, I think you're really going to like Tanks vs. Bombs. I hope you're really excited as I am about Tanks vs. Bombs. So thanks a lot, and get out there and blow some stuff up. So anyway, that's still needs a little bit of work on that, but pretty happy with how it turned out. And I especially like the alien. A little touch there. So we're developing the game in Unity. And we've just had a really small team. It's basically myself and Adam, and then we've had a couple other contract programmers and some contract artists, but it's pretty much been the two of us doing this. And we started, I designed the game before I moved out for the Kabam venture, and then we started last October was when we started. Now we're kind of at the beta phase. Oh, let me do one thing here.
So you have to bear with me. It's a little hard to control the game with this Retina, with the HDMI stuff. But so what I've done is, I've tried to build in all the stuff that I saw that successful free-to-play games and wrap it around this more of a hardcore, mid-core type experience. So you have your typical get more games, ads, that kind of stuff. Let me just jump right into some of the action here. So originally I started out with sort of a Candy Crush style development. There was this whole map, and as you go through, you progress. But we realized that to support that from a content side was going to be pretty difficult. So now we've changed it over where we have 3 maps: a desert map, a snow map, and then a forest map. And then you unlock it. You can either grind to unlock them, or you can actually pay to unlock them. So without further ado, here is so who here's tower defense players? Anyone? Yes? Okay. So I wanted to make the game really familiar for people that like tower defense. So you have your choice of towers that you put out. Machine gun, flame towers, rocket towers, as well as a cannon. You guys see this? Also, I brought something new to it where as you kill the creeps that come out, then they drop coins. There's power-ups in the game. There's a multitude of weapons in the game. You can put out mines for the ground units. The kind of the secret sauce part of this too are these real-time swipe weapons, like you saw in the video, which is difficult to control here. And this guy's really. All right, so he beat the snot out of me.
It's okay if you lose your own game gear.
It's just like almost impossible to control it here, but yeah. So the secret sauce is these real-time weapons. So if you press and hold this down, then you can switch weapons. So we have missiles, which are more accurate and more powerful than the grenades. And then the coolest one of the coolest ones, are these guided missiles. If you throw the missiles out, they'll actually lock on to targets. And then you can see these power-ups. So we have coin doubler, coin magnet, and then invincibility. Now, different from regular tower defense games, your towers can actually get destroyed, so you need to heal them. And then down here, you have to heal your command center. If that gets killed, then the game's over. And then, of course, every game that I produce has to have a nuke in it. So if you drop the nuke, it'll destroy everything on the screen that's spawned at that point. And then there's different kinds of heals. There's small heal, and then medium, and then a heal all, which will heal your towers as well as your command center too. So you can also upgrade your towers to become more powerful. And you can actually see them change as you upgrade them. So I tried to really take some elements from a lot of the games that I like. I love games with loot that drop. And I really like RTS games, and really combined them, made this hybrid, which hopefully will push the boundaries a bit of tower defense, because I never understood in tower defense games, well, you set up your towers and then the enemies just run by, and that's it. It's like, I want to blow those guys up, and I wanted a little bit more out of the experience. So let me just quickly show you the other two maps.
here's our snow map. And each map kind of has its different challenges. You can place the towers in different spots. And the way that I have the enemies spawning is different each time. It kind of builds up to more of a challenge as you go. But I really like the fact that there's always something going on. You know, it's pretty exciting. It's not like, hey, I can just sit back and watch the game and kind of play itself. And then, so that's the snow map, and then just briefly I'll show you the mountain pass. And each map, as you progress, I've tuned it so it's progressively more difficult. Hopefully keep the players involved. And you know, we're at the spot where we're building in Facebook connectivity. Adam's got Twitter already working, but it's really, you know, all about the high scores. And right now it's single player, but eventually I would love to add a multiplayer option where you would send enemies against your buddies to play, and they would defend their base against your attacks. Always have to end the demo with the giant nuke there. Anyway, that's tanks versus bombs. And any questions? Yeah.
I'm curious about the monetization for the consumables, like the nukes and things.
Yes.
Are there like a limited number, and then you have to buy more?
Yes. So it's got a full store built in. So there's a life system as well. So you go in the store, you know, the game will prompt you as you're playing. If you run out of something, it will prompt you, say, hey, you've run out. You can either switch to another weapon, or it'll take you to the store right then to buy it. So we have the life section, and then there's also a whole set of power-ups. So the power-ups are, as I said before, coin doubler, coin magnet, and invincibility. And these are permanent. So as you invest in them, those abilities become more powerful, but they stick with you for the rest of the time. There's also a feature where right now you're limited to putting out 3 towers at a time, but you can purchase, just like in Clash of Clans where you buy another builder, you can purchase the ability to put out another tower on a permanent basis as well. And then all the weapons are down here, and then you can just scroll through and pick out the ones you want to do the most damage on. Any other questions? Todd?
Well, so obviously you previously worked with teams that are significantly bigger. You were saying earlier, like, you know, whatever, 75,
Yeah.
80 people, and this is a much smaller team. You know, what are the big sort of advantages and disadvantages to having this much smaller?
So what I really like about working with a smaller team, we were talking about earlier, is just you can be really nimble. You know, there's not a lot of barriers you put your heads together. And the way that we work is we just use a Google Doc that has a list of the features and bugs that we want to, and I go in and prioritize them, and then we just kind of attack them that way. So in that regard, it's really nice, you know, very nimble. If you get a cool idea that you want to try out, you know, easy to do that. You know, the downside is that, you know, I'm used to working with full team, like a room this size, just filled with people working on, you know, the game that I'm producing. At this point, so we just got our first, this is the first beta build that we've put together. And Adam and I were up till like midnight, you know, the other night, and just trying to get that one in the can. So I do, you know, every now and then miss having a larger team, but I do like the smaller teams, and you know, you can just be a lot more creative and do cooler stuff more quickly, I would say. Yes?
So you're a two-man team, right?
Well, it's, yeah, two
But you're
full-time.
contracting a lot of bar guys and stuff.
Right, two full-time, as well as, we've had several other, two or three contract programmers, as well as a little bit of contract art in there too.
So the game is obviously 2D perspective, top-down.
Yes.
Like, how are the assets being created? Are they being done with a pixel editor, or are they 3D assets?
So the maps themselves, the terrains, I've had 3D artists. So I would design the maps and then had 3D artists put them together. Some of the others, my name's Gary, and I have a big asset store problem. So we've gotten tons of great stuff off the asset store as well. So yeah, it's a combination of created and purchased and then modified.
So just regarding your company, where do you get the funding right now?
From my savings. So that's the other scary part, of course, is putting your butt on the line. And like I mentioned earlier, I had my own company years ago, and it's taken this long for the scars to heal, for me to dive back in. But I felt strongly enough that, hey, I've worked multiple companies. I also worked at Tryon prior to moving out here, and I was overseeing a big MMO for them. And it was the same kind of thing. I busted my ass for like 2.5 years. And you have all this upper management politics stuff, and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, you're gone, kind of thing. So if you can make it work, doing your own thing, that's obviously for me like the best of all worlds. Just to be able to create games, and I've designed the whole game myself as well, and. We were talking earlier, just doing all kinds of, like anything that needs to be done, right? You have to dive into. But it's a risk, right? You have to be willing to put your ass on the line and say, okay, I can build something that's really cool. And, I'm pretty excited about the tanks. I think it's something, I tried to do something in, as I said, a known genre with a built-in audience. So I didn't try and do something like brand new. Totally brand new, but I wanted to innovate within that, adding some of the real-time elements to this as well. So just to make it stand apart from others. But it's scary, yes.
Well, speaking of scary, so obviously, having worked at Kavan, we know there are companies out there releasing mobile games that have millions of dollars to drop in marketing budgets and huge budgets for development and have these super high production value kind of titles.
Yes.
So what kind of plan do you guys have to try to differentiate or kind of take that on to sort of stand out from that?
So that's obviously that's been it's been interesting. I've wanted to do mobile games for, I would have to say, 6 or 7 years now, right? And when I first started, some of the guys at Tryon that worked with us, they put out a game. Well, it wasn't a game, it was just an app. It was called Koi Pond. I don't know if you guys ever saw this. And they, it was like 5 of them. They made like $1 million. It was just fish in a pond, and it looked really cool. And you put your finger in there. And so I've seen the industry from those days. It actually went all the way back to where you actually need, if you want to compete in the market that I'm stepping into, you do have to have those deep pockets. And so I've already met at GDC last year, met with a whole bunch of publishers that are interested in the title, because I realize that it does take all that money to really push a game and get it out there. Otherwise, I would love to have just done it all on my own. And I'm also gearing up, that's why I did the video, is for the grassroots marketing approach. So I'm sort of this parallel path of pursuing companies that have the funds to actually push the game and do user acquisition, but also prepping for guerrilla warfare in terms of getting the word out as well too. So, yeah.
So
How's your experience been with Unity? Would you guys do it again?
You know, Adam can speak to this as well, but Unity in certain ways, it's really great. You know, just the fact that all the tools that come with it, all that, the asset, you know, art or code assets that you can really get really cheaply. I think the downside for us is the fact that it's so finicky in terms of, I'm used to working with Perforce, you know, where we have 75 people working on a project and you're not constantly stepping on each other. That's one of the things for me that's...
Yeah, source control. Source control and sharing assets. Right. Well, Unity handles scenes, it's a little wonky, and so if two people are working on the same scene and you have commits that are different, it's kind of difficult to merge.
Now there are ways around it.
Yeah, there's Unity has their own asset server that can't help with that, but I've talked to people and it's still a little janky. You know, Unity, it was built a long time ago, you know, as just like this thing for internal users to make, or internal people to make a game, and it's just kind of grown from there. So there are still some growing pains from it, and some places that aren't fleshed out as well as they should be, like the GUI. But where the places where they are worse at, there's a lot of assets in the asset store that'll help that, and what you get from it is very quick prototyping, coupled with the fact that you can dig down afterwards and optimize anything you want to. So it's like really the best of both worlds. I really dig it. From a developer point of view, I think it's the way to go.
I would also,
cross-platform.
yeah, I would, oh, well, that was one of the draws as well, the cross-platform. So now that, you know, once we get the game in a state it's ready to be launched, you know, we're going iOS, we're going to do Android, Amazon, and then even web, you know, the way that the controls are designed, it'll work with point and click. I would also consider, you know, 2D games, so things like Cocos, 2DX, for, you know, that's another great option as well. I was kind of drawn towards the 3D part of it, you know, just from my background. Although this, you know, there are elements that could have been 2D, right? But that's, you know, this is the path we've chosen, so. And I do have friends in the industry that are putting out some good mobile games, and they've figured out ways around, you know, there's Perforce plugins now for Unity and make it a little bit easier for larger teams to work on it too. So, but yeah, you can't beat the price, right? Anyone else have a question? Yes?
Are you guys using that GUI for your GUI?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is, I have to say I'm like flabbergasted at the pain you have to go through, even within GUI, to do GUI stuff. Like, it's astounding how, I'm like, really? I have to, it's like, instead of, at this point, having like these store windows, right? Every game now is gonna have these store windows. It's like, well, why don't you just have a module where there's a store window, you know, and you just populate it. But you sort of have to piece it together, so it's kind of, that part's painful. There's another solution called the King or the GUI or another module that's supposed to be pretty good as well too. But yes, we're using GUI and Unity for that.
Did you guys ever consider Scaleform?
No, not for this. I have for many of my other games, and we always decided against Scaleform because of the performance issues. Although, you know, there's been multiple games made, but that didn't come up for it. And GUI was really like the front runner for Unity, so we ended up going with that. But it's, yeah, my fingers are all bloody from it, so. Yes?
So are you guys doing any advertisements, or is it all in-app purchases?
Yeah, I've actually put in spots for ads. I'm trying to cover like all the bases, right? I mean, that's what you have to do to compete out there. So on the pause, so I'm not trying to kill people with ads on this because I really would much rather have them in the game playing it than watching ads. But here, so I put in a placeholder for banner ads.
So are you guys? So you are doing banners and full screen?
Yeah. So the plan is there's, you know, pause menu banner and this store menu for banner, and then I'm going to do one interstitial when you start the game, and then also considering doing incentivized videos So according to my friends that are doing this, and a lot of people that I've read on the web, giving the players the option, hey, here's a gem to watch this video. It creates a much better experience for them to do it that way than force them to, hey, I want to play the game, but this video is playing and I can't.
Are you guys going to do that through Tapjoy or someone?
We're going to use Vungle.
Vungle?
Yeah.
Huh.
Only because my buddies
Oh, okay.
use that, and I've spent several months now like pondering all the different, Tapjoy and Vungle and all the different options, and finally I was just like, all right, I just need these things covered, and I can change that. We could change it later on if we need to, but so it's a Vungle, probably iAd for the banners, and then maybe Playhaven for the interstitial ads. So, yes.
So mobile devices are obviously getting more and more powerful,
Mhm.
more are more capable. I mean, they say, the Android guys are saying they're going to be able to do like PC quality 3D
Yes.
really soon. So like, what do you think? Like, you think it's still like there's still space for 2D games on mobile?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, I really come from a 3D background, so I lean towards that. But the more that we've developed this game, and the more research that I've done, and actually developed a little 2D game on the side, 2D is totally viable. I would absolutely consider doing a 2D game moving forward. You can do great stuff with it, and it's, Cocos is it's open source, I believe, and lots and lots of games were made in that too. So, but my heart is really into 3D stuff and watching it blow up, basically. So, how are we doing on time, Todd?
Any other questions? Maybe the last one.
Nope. Great. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sure.
We're just going to switch over to the next speaker quickly, and hold tight for a second while we do the switch. Hold tight.
I'm going to just move from here. I'm going to go up there.
Gotta be up here. It's not official unless you're up here.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Oh, there was one other quick announcement. So I have a friend of mine that's involved with the Asian game publishing, and if I already mentioned it to these guys, but if any of you have a mobile game that's pretty far along that you're interested in getting published or distributed in Asia, specifically Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, and possibly China, you can go ahead and ping me and find me on LinkedIn, or just come up and I'll give you a card and let me know. But it's a good opportunity, and wanted to get that out there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, dude. It's awesome.
So you guys want to use the mic?
I'm pretty good. Can you guys hear me okay? Is that fine? All right. So Chris brought his T-shirt and I didn't.
Look at that. You guys
but
have swag.
That's also because
That's how you know we're official.
I don't have a T-shirt, and so that's probably a good reason.
You do have a shirt.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I don't think I did. I think I missed that one. But hey, I'm Spence Wetjen, and
Chris Primozich.
and between the two, actually it's up to 5 of us now. We're doing Togga, and Togga is fantasy sports, but for soccer. So can I just get a quick sense, like how many folks here have played a fantasy game of some sort? MLB, football, basketball, NFL. About half you guys?
Yeah, I have.
You played too, Gary?
Yeah.
That's cool. And then how many of you guys have played in like the last year or so? One of you? A couple of you? Cool. Well, we're doing fantasy sports but for soccer, and I promise there's only 2 slides because it's about showing off a game, not a bunch of slides. But the thing that got us really excited about this is that there's tons of folks in the world that love soccer. In fact, more people like soccer than any other sport in the world. There's over 1.5 billion people that watch BPL, or the English Premier League. That's the 20 or so teams that play in Britain. And so it's really amazing just how many folks are into soccer. And the cool thing is, if you look at it, there's really no interesting fantasy games out there for them. Like, fantasy games are kind of an American phenomenon. Like, we've kind of dialed it in. We've figured out how to do it well with beers and bars and friends. And They don't do it very well anywhere else. And so when you look at it, there's not that many people that actually are playing fantasy soccer, but tons of people are playing football. And if I showed you the number as to how many people are into watching NFL every weekend, it's not 1.5 billion people. It's a lot smaller than that. So we think it's a cool opportunity to go out there and scratch an itch that no one has scratched yet and make a really cool game out of the process. And that's what we're doing with Togga. So before we show the game real quick, maybe we'll just kind of give you the tour about ourselves.
Give a little introduction.
Yeah.
A little about your background.
So my background is actually not in games. I've been building software now for probably about 10 years, mostly in the enterprise space. So I've built conference calling software. I did a lot of work on BestBuy.com. If you shop for products there, I'm part of the guys who built out those shopping experiences, merchandising, things like that. And I've always wanted to build a game. And so I hooked up with Chris and our other friends, and kind of the opportunity got to be there. But what I'm good at is kind of product management, and I'm also a UX and design guy. And so I'm currently turning out wireframes every day and laying out how the game's got to work and trying to work with these guys on the scoring systems and all that kind of fun stuff that goes into it. That's kind of a little bit about me.
And so I've been doing games off and on since the mid-90s. I worked for a little company called Origin Systems back in the mid-90s. Worked there for about 2.5 years on games like Crusader No Remorse, Wing Commander. I wasn't fortunate enough to work on any of the Ultimas. But then after I left Origin, I got into internet, startups, technology. I've done a whole bunch of web-based stuff, a lot of e-commerce. And then in 2007, started a company called Challenge Games, which was web-based gaming. Free-to-play type stuff before free-to-play became like a really big thing. That company was purchased by Zynga in 2010, and that's when I started my own studio. And so I've been running that for the last 4 years. And met Spence last year, sort of fortuitously, while I was working on my game studio. And so we just became friends, and another one of our partners came to me with the idea for Togga, and we sort of evolved it into where we are now. And so my background is really internet technology and web-based stuff, and with a heavy dose of gaming thrown in, and I've also developed a mobile client for one of my games at my previous company. So I've got a host of gaming and sort of free-to-play experience. Always wanted to do sort of fantasy sports, and so when our other partner Scott said, "Hey, got this great idea for fantasy soccer," I said, "Let's do it." And here we are.
So let's jump in. Let's show you guys the game we got so far. So this is kind of what our landing page looks like right now. It's a placeholder. English Premier League has their first game starting in just over 2 weeks from now. And so what we're trying to do is get as much functionality out there as we can, so players can come in and kind of play the open beta with us and give us feedback. And actually, I want to stop on that for a second. It's actually one of the coolest things so far is we've got a couple hundred users already. And the user engagement we've seen is really cool, pretty cool, because they're emailing us all the time saying, "Hey, I really wish that this button did this," or "I really wish that you had this feature inside the game," or "How do I kick somebody out of my league? This guy doesn't want to play with me anymore." Just that kind of stuff. And so this process of just kind of like listening to our users, our players, and kind of just making tweaks as we go live is really cool. And the one learning for me in that process is that our game is not particularly beautiful yet. It doesn't have a lot of visual appeal like Gary's game does. And actually, like, nobody has complained about that yet. Maybe one person has said, "Hey, we wish your game was a little more snappy." Everyone's more like, "Hey, we just wish it kind of did these other things," and that's pretty cool, you know. But we got a little basic page here. We kind of talk to people about our game. We explain a little bit about how the scoring system works and how you're actually able to play the game. And it's just a really simple kind of site here that we use to get in. So if you want to, you can sign up and play. If you guys want to play with us, by the way, we have our own league. We're more than happy to invite somebody else to play with us, by the way. So when you log in, you got a pretty simple experience like you're probably kind of familiar with on a fantasy game. We give you some options to create a league. That's kind of the first thing you have to do, or you have to join your friend's league that way. And the big differentiator for us is that we have a draft-based game. And so if you don't know the difference, it's that mini games will just let you pick from all the same players. And so if Sanchez, say he's a really good player, he actually is, right? And you really want to have him, well then all of the guys can have him, and it's not really all that competitive because you're all kind of picking from the top guys. In draft-based games, you're competing and you're kind of making trade-offs for like kind of B or C players for these positions, right? And then there's the politicking of like, well, I'm going to trade Sanchez maybe to Christian, and he's going to give me 2 of his guys that I need because I got a guy who got hurt or something like that, you know? And so without a draft-based game, you don't have that kind of interaction going on, and that's a big part of our game that way. So we had to create a draft system here. And Christian, did you join my league?
Yeah, sure.
If you want to, we want to show you off how that works. So I created a league called Show Off, and we're going to show it off. It's really simple right now. We don't have the system in place where you can actually even invite other people. You have to share a code, and actually it's working okay. We've had, I think, over 100 leagues created at this point in time, and several drafts occur, which is pretty cool. Once you've created your league and your peeps have gotten in there, then you can go ahead and you can change the draft order. So if you want to have like an offline component where you're kind of picking who gets to go first, or there was some kind of raffle or drawing or gambling that goes into that, then we kind of unofficially support that amongst players that way. Let me know when you're in.
I'm in.
All right. There we go. I'm going to set the draft order here so that
Create a team.
the king can go first. I'm going to create my own team here. Whoops. I had to create a team, don't I? I'm going to give myself the name Raptors are cool. That's my team name. And then I'm going to let the king go first, my buddy Chris. And you get to set a draft date. I already set a draft time to occur in the past so we can show you how the drafting works, but you can pick a draft date in the future. So I'm going to view the draft. Chris is going to jump in there too. And this is kind of where you get to see some of our first integration. So one of the questions you might have is, how do you get all the information about the players, right? If you think about it, there's like hundreds of players and tons of stats that happen all the time. And we have a partner through a firm called Opta, and they're really remarkable. They're able to like watch all these games, and they document all these stats in near real time. And then they feed them to us in an XML format, and we digest them and put them into our game. And that's how we get this. So that's how we know who the people are, where they are in the game, and their baseline stats. And then we do our own kind of math to figure out like what's the scoring system for those people there.
And if you want to see something cool, you can Google up Opta and how they sort of capture those stats. They
Right.
actually have an army of people who watch the games, and they've got a custom interface that sort of sits on top of the games, and they specifically recruit people, not necessarily for their soccer knowledge. They want people who are good gamers because they're doing all this in real time, and the interface is much like playing a PlayStation game in terms of capturing what is happening when during the game. And so they get things wrong from time to time, but they're actually pretty accurate. But everything is reviewed after the game as well to make sure that they got all the stats right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what you see here is I think Spence is checked in. On the left-hand side, it's got the upcoming picks, which is basically just me and him. In the middle is all the players that you can choose from. And on the right-hand side, it will sort of fill in with who you pick as we both draft. One of the cool features. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make it just a little bit bigger?
Yeah, you got it, man. We'll scale it up a little bit. Does that help?
Oh, okay, no.
That's fine.
But yes, that helps.
And so you can have up to, what, 12 players, I think, in your leagues? 12 teams in your leagues?
Actually, we support eight teams right now.
I think we got 12, dude.
Do we have 12 now?
Yeah.
Oh, we got 12 now.
We got 12. It's bigger. And so scroll up a little bit. And so you can see here you'll have teams, that check mark will be gray if they're not checked in. And so when you're drafting, it's usually a big event. Like if you haven't done this, you know, usually you get together at your friend's house and you have some beers, and so you can all sort of run it on the same computer. Everybody can have their own computer, and everybody sort of checks in to make sure they're ready.
Right.
But one of the cool features is auto draft.
Yep. So we're going to do that. We actually won't make you watch us go through an entire draft together, because if you've drafted before, you know it can be kind of time consuming.
We're gonna get some more beers. We're gonna be
But if you have a, if you have a bigger game that way, that's cool. Actually, one way you can draft too is we can appoint the commissioner to do some of the draft steps for people as well. So we kind of support however folks might want to play. So I'm going to set mine to auto draft.
And I'm already on
And you're set to auto draft. Most people actually won't probably do it this way, but it helps us actually test it and kind of run it through that way. And so we're going to hit OK. And you can actually see on the right-hand side over here, my picks are starting to fill in, and our algorithm's kind of looking at saying, well, based on the position that's available and how good that player is, it's automatically grabbing probably the best player that you could get and then putting into that slot for you. And it runs all the way through until the draft is complete. And it supports other ways. So if we wanted to, just one guy could auto draft and the other guy could be sitting there kind of trying to dominate using his own, cheeky rules, and it works kind of either way, that way. So once we're all filled in with our folks, we take you back to kind of what we're kind of calling our dashboard, and this is kind of what you're going to see during the season of play, right? So I'm Raptor Attacks are cool. I can change my name if I wanted to. This is my scoring down here, and then these are the folks that are in my league and how we're doing. And since we actually haven't played any games yet, there's no win streak or advantage at this point in time. But as soon as the first week of play comes by, we will generate points and scoring for that, and there will be a winner in the matchup, which this week is going to be me and Christian together. And then we cycle through them, right? So the matchups aren't always the same people. We rotate through like you would expect, and you get to have kind of matchups every single week that week. Got a little game card up here. We plan to make more spiffy with time. That'll kind of show you your position, and then we show you kind of who are you playing in the future that way. And that's kind of the major thing there. Also, we pull in some other data to kind of tell you. So one of the things you might know is that if you are thinking about your players, you're also kind of wondering like who's playing against who. So if I have say a couple guys for Man U, then I'm probably thinking about like, is Man U playing at home, and who are they playing against, and how can I use that knowledge to my advantage so that I can have a more advantageous lineup, And so we have kind of the fixtures of who plays who, and then we can even dive into each individual player and look and see, well, how often do they tend to play another team, and how well do they do when they're playing at home versus elsewhere, and give the player all that rich data that they want to know to kind of be really smart about what their lineup's going to look like that week. Chris, is there anything else I should add on this one?
Yeah. So let's check out. So we've got a sample league set up so people can sort of check out what happens during like a full-blown season.
Right. So here's what it looks like with a sample league. And so obviously most leagues are going to have more than just 2 people because it's more people are more fun that way. And so what you see is kind of what we're calling like a little game matchup card. And so you got the Iron Strikers on the left and the men in t-shirts on the right. And you can see that these are the players that we've lined up. And so here's my goalie, defenseman, midfieldman, forwards, and vice versa. And we've actually built a little tool so we can kind of populate it with some sample data. And we can kind of run these little simulators to see like what happens when these matchups actually occur. And so you can see that this guy over here did not do so hot. He actually had -3 points that week. And that's kind of one thing we're doing in our game too, is you actually can have negative points. You get points for attacking and points for defending, but if you get like self goals, or if you have some atrocious games that week, you can lose some points that way. And so your front position is not always guaranteed, and we think that kind of makes it a fun gameplay mechanic.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing a little bit differently than some of the sites that are out there. So one of the problems with fantasy soccer is there are not quite as many stats sort of intrinsically as maybe like NFL or NBA or MLB. And so, so there are as many stats, they just historically haven't been captured in the same way that these other major sports have captured their data. And so now with these companies like Opta that are capturing all that stuff and providing it in a format that other companies can access via an API, we can use that to make the scoring in fantasy soccer much more interesting. So we use about 24 events right now to drive our scoring system. And whereas the normal fantasy system is driven more on like 10 or so events, and it's largely based on who scores the most goals, which doesn't make the game any more interesting.
Yep, that's well said. So that's our matchup. Some of the things we're going to be working on next is improving some of the functionality owners have. So right now these are just kind of some placeholder images, but our intention is to kind of let you customize it, let your own kind of personality come through. Want to do trophies and stuff, so when you get like a 5-week win streak, then you got some bling to show off that you are the big dog and everyone else needs to bow down. Kind of fun stuff like that we're planning to put in the game as well. Can I show the lineup screen here? Is that?
Yeah, sure.
Under this. And so one of the things you have to do is you have to set a lineup. And so what we have here is a screen that's pretty simple. You can kind of look at your team. These are the folks you need to field. And you can drag from your bench the players you want to put up there. I'm just going to click the Start My Best, which kind of automatically fills that in. But you can see who we got here as my goalie. And as the game goes along, this data will be put into the game live. So I know this guy plays Saturday, 5 p.m. And so as that game goes on, our game will be updating live with how he does during the game. So as he's blocking shots and as he's doing stuff, I can keep an eye on that. And if I go back to my game matchup screen, I can be watching my buddy's team too, and I can be like rooting against his players. Like I'm going to really hope that that guy just really screws it up this game and gets a bunch of negative points so that he totally loses to me, which is what I want. We still have to build some more functionality. One of the ones is doing trades and free agents. So we're going to make it so obviously you can kind of retire players if they get hurt, or you see someone else come in that's maybe a better player. There's some other tactics we have to build those kinds of functions still into the screen that way. And so it's actively kind of a work in progress. We got kind of 2 weeks until the first game happens. And so we're doing updates every day. And there's a new little bit of functionality or code that lets you do stuff. I think right now we're working on player lists. So you can see like who are all the players by position. And you can see like who's good at what and compare them to your own guys and decide if you want to trade them in and out and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, so one of the awesome things, like, I mean, I don't know how many people here are like web guys and how many here are like sort of your desktop app guys and, you know, like what's everybody familiar with? Because like one of the awesome things about web-based development, right, is like we are updating the site every single day with new content and features. Whereas in the packaged game industry, like, you know, back in the day, like when I was at Origin, right, we got our gold discs together and then shipped those off to the publisher so that they could get them printed, right? And then maybe we would patch the game in 3 months. And so this, we're updating basically in real time. Mm-hmm. And even like in the mobile world, you know, you still have to go through, on Android it's sort of nice, you can publish as you want to, but in iOS you're still at sort of Apple's, you know, beck and call and have to wait 2 weeks or however many weeks it is for it to go through their process. Right. And so that is one of the awesome parts about doing web-based development, and like Spence was saying earlier, getting feedback in sort of real time and having an ongoing discussion. And so we'll implement message boards to have even a better touch with our community. Mm-hmm. So some of the cool stuff that you get with web-based development. Yeah, that's right. And we'll do a mobile client, but it probably won't be ready until early next year.
Right. Yeah, our goal is to get it so we got a really good game week 1 to play, and then just keep iterating and improving it, listening to our users. And we got a small following on Reddit that are kind of fans of us, and so we're continuing to engage with those guys and get more people interested that way. I can share a little bit more about how we're building the game. If anyone's curious in our process on how we go from nothing to something. Anyone interested in seeing how we do it? Okay. One of the things we found kind of useful is actually a little product called Trello, which you guys probably know about. And what's cool about Trello is that it kind of is like a Kanban board, if you're familiar with that, but you can do it with as many people as you want. And so we kind of follow like a little bit of a Scrum methodology. We got our next step over here, which is our kind of our backlog, if you would. We have one working on that's in progress right now, and we have stuff that's complete, stuff that's launched, and we track how many kind of points essentially we're doing per week. And right now it's mostly just Chris and I. I track design points and he tracks engineering points. So we had a good week last week. We shipped 6.5 points. Now, a point is a day, so we were hustling last week. We're gonna keep hustling this week again as well too. And this is neat because we can click into a card and then you know, we can kind of post into the card what my wireframes might look like for this, and I keep track of my changes in here so that Chris and, you know, the other folks in our team can look at it and they can give critiques live and we can kind of collaborate on that. We're all in the same town, we all see each other a lot, but it's kind of nice to have one little centralized place for that. But generally our process is we kind of write up a spec for what we think the game needs to be doing, and then once we have that spec, we'll set up a set of wireframes. And I'm a big fan of OmniGraffle, so I'll turn out like a little screen like this. This is what we think our little dashboard's gonna look like. It has these little game cards going on, because we don't want to have just draft soccer. We want to do like a bunch of different kind of fantasy style games that way. And so we're gonna have other games on there. There'll be kind of fun little visual set of systems for that, kind of like you see on King.com or Zynga, those kind of guys. That would be two of one of our analogs. And so we'll wire it up, and then we'll put it into development. One of the things we're gonna add will be a layer of visual design. Right now, it's more important to get the functionality out than it is to make it look awesome, and we want to do that, but that'll be coming a bit later, and that'll become part of our process kind of soon. And if you're a fan of OmniGraffle or Azure or things like that, I mean, it's just a great tool. You can prototype quickly. I generally will start on paper, just kind of work out the affordances and the grid system for it, and then with Graffle, you can go in and basically lay a screen out pretty quickly and iterate through it very rapidly and get a mock-up in place that you can decide what it needs to look like. And so that's kind of enough of a spec that Chris and I can collaborate on it together. It's documented enough that if we have maybe a third developer here soon, hopefully, that there's a good spec to work from, you know, what to kind of do that way. And then it shows up inside of our game over here. And that's the process we're following. Then we got a friend that helps us with QA, and we're also QA it ourselves in different browsers, try to break it and rinse and repeat. And so that's our process so far. Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
So, obviously you're focused on the English Premier League. Is there, like, what's your competition like in this space for that? Like, obviously that's the Premier League.
Yeah.
And so that probably done some research on what's out there already.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's interesting. Barclays, it's actually Barclays Premier League, or English Premier League is what it's called. And Barclays actually has their own game. They have their own fantasy game you can go to. It's not nearly as cool as our game. They don't have any draft stuff going on with it. And so it's just like I talked about picking the best players. And when people talk about it on Reddit and on forums, all of them brand about the fact that it doesn't have enough kind of functionality that way. And so they're probably the big dog, if you would, that's kind of the biggest in the space. And then there's kind of the other players you're familiar with. There's Yahoo.com, CBDES, ESPN, those guys. And all of them run little games as well too, with varying degrees of success that way. But again, there's nobody else that's doing a draft-based game in this area. It's really hard to make a draft-based game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is fans are rabid, right? Like, they want to engage with whatever they're a fan of, right? And they sort of want to do it 24/7, right? It doesn't matter whether it's World of Warcraft or League of Legends or fantasy football or fantasy soccer, right? They want to be engaged and they want a quality product. And if there's not a quality product, they'll go play with whatever crappy product is available. And so Premier League is sort of, what's out there. But so the Opta guys have been around for a long time. They're a big company and we're sort of lucky to be working with them. But our other partner, Scott, was in New York last week or the week before and met with their North American representative. And I mean, he sort of gave us a little bit of insight into how Premier League views their fantasy offering. And to them, it's just like a side project. It's just something that, it's a checkbox, right? Like, we need to have a fantasy product. And so get whatever is sort of the minimum viable thing out there. And so they haven't given it a great deal of thought. They don't really support it. There's obviously not a lot of passion behind it. And so we feel we can offer something that's way better than what they do.
So you guys are bringing the mentality. So I only ever played fantasy football once, but I almost won. Like, it was like astounding. Like, I was so into it. I would get up Sunday morning, listen to the podcast and all that stuff. And so you're trying to bring that to the English Premier League, right? Like that, because that's what everyone was doing, trading, drafting. I mean, that was the fun of.
It's the politics of it. It's the drama. It's the trying to outguess your opponent, outplay. Yeah,
right.
Totally.
And that's a new spin for over there in Europe.
Yeah. So one of the issues with their current system, and Spence was describing this earlier, is that the way it works is basically you get a salary at the beginning of the season. So everybody starts paying salary, and then we can pick from the player list whoever we want to,
So it's more of a manager type thing.
Exactly.
As opposed to, this is the draft.
As opposed to the draft and head-to-head, week-to-week. You and I would all of us would score points based on our players, our roster.
Just like NFL fantasy, right?
But with theirs, we could ostensibly have the same exact roster. Whereas with a draft,
what fun is that? You
cannot have.
There's no scarcity. Like, obviously, you're going to pick the best guy. Like, why would you not pick him? Like, you'd be a fool not to.
And what's your monetization?
There are a couple different angles that we're going to work on. One is commissioner league type stuff, where you're in your league and you want sort of premium options. And so those might be everything from advanced analytical type data, like premium content, to premium customer service, to what else do we have on the list?
Just premium league options too.
Like customized leagues, like, okay, we have our default scoring system, but you want to customize how many points a goal is worth, or things of that nature. Or by default, you can have 12 teams in your league max, but you want 16 teams in your league, or something, things like that, right? So you pay us like $100 a year to basically have a premium league as opposed to the default free league. And then there's also a virtual goods play, which is, okay, by default, you can choose from these avatars if you want one of the premium avatars, or like we can have the games take place in a stadium, a virtual stadium. You can choose from the default stadiums, you can have a premium stadium, right? And so there'll be things that don't affect the outcome of the games.
Right.
Like sort of, yeah, exactly, aesthetic type stuff. And also another big sort of option that we're talking about in terms of virtual goods is sort of the Zynga poker model, which is betting, gambling with your friends, and but using sort of virtual currency to do that. Yeah, exactly. And so you might get so much virtual currency per day that you can wager. If you run out of that, you can buy more.
And is there a real-time chat system, or so is that something that?
Yeah.
For Smack, constant Smack talking?
Absolutely, yeah. You got to be able to troll your friends you're going to play and run Smack to it and everything. Yeah. Cool. Great questions. Yeah.
So this might be like an obvious soccer reference that I'm missing, but what is the inspiration for the name?
Togga.
It's not obvious at all. And so it's a bit of an archaic reference to soccer match. It's English, but that's what Togga means, is football match. But you won't talk to a lot of English people who know that reference. It's somewhat obscure, but that's why we chose it. I mean, we didn't choose it because it's obscure, but we chose it.
Also, soccer.com was bought. Someone had bought it already, so we couldn't buy that one, so that was off the picture. So.
How much do you pay off that for the data?
A lot. More than we would like to.
Like
Thousands.
Thousands for a year subscription? Like, I mean, I'm just curious.
It's an annual subscription.
The terms are kind of private, you know, as you might suspect with a contract like that, but you get a lot of value for it. I mean, they're sending you data on every single game, a lot of really detailed data.
Who else do they supply the data to?
Everybody.
Like, who else would need that level of detail?
Like BBC, so like for example, World Cup.
Oh, they would really want that level.
Yeah, so for example, they would write articles about World Cup, and they actually will look at each game, how many chances were created, how many tackles the player did. So they use Opta actually for that.
Don't cite me on this, but I think the World Cup data that Google was showing was from Opta as well too.
Yeah.
Like you remember the little thing of the leagues, and it would show you the game going on. Yeah. That was all their stuff as well too. Right. And you can order them, you know, they've got a really good data set, and you know, you can build your own little widget and let it run, and it tells you all the stuff, you know, which is kind of cool that way. You know.
And their parent company actually owns a bunch of media properties worldwide, and so they use that data throughout, like all of those news sites and whatnot.
But like with anything, when you integrate with a third party, we actually have to do some work to make the data that's coming in actually work well for our games. And sometimes the data isn't always exactly what we expect, and so we have to do a little sanitizing of it to make sure that the game data is actually the game data and you're not getting wire scores.
What type of data do they feed you?
It's basically an XML feed.
Yeah, they've got sort of a laundry list of data that you can get, and so we subscribe to a bunch of their feeds.
Is it live feed, or is that?
What's that?
Is it live feed?
No, it's not live. And so basically, they sort of commit to updating based on a set schedule, depending on what the information is. And so during a live game, I think it's every 3 minutes or every time a major event happens. And a major event is described as a goal, or it says leading the goal, or maybe like the red card, yellow card, and things like that. Right.
We have data sets for other European leagues.
We don't, but you can get them. And so it's amazing what data is available out there. And so we're just interested in the Premier League right now. But certainly one of the things we're looking at as we build out the platform is whether or not we should pursue other leagues, whether it's MLS or La Liga or Bundesliga or whoever, or potentially so Opta even, they did sort of a special feed setup for the World Cup, and so they did all the World Cup games. Whenever you want, you can basically get it.
I think it would be more popular in Europe with the Spanish or the German league.
When you say better, like
I mean, I
define
think
better.
Premier League is like number 8 right now.
Okay.
Especially after the World Cup, they just really tanked. I mean, it's a very good league, but like if you want to play on like a European level, especially countries that don't have anything in the top 10 or even top 20, then I would say definitely the Spanish league and the German league would be
We'll have to look
should
at
be
those.
should be our target, not
Right.
not the Premier League.
Well, so one of the things, honestly, that also probably drives our decision-making process is TV rights. And so Premier League has a big deal with the major networks to show Premier League games over here now, right? There's much broader access to those. And I think that contract expires in 2015 when they'll have to renew that. And it seems like the way it's going, that it will be renewed and there will be even more access to Premier League games over here. And you sort of need that in order for the game to work, at least, in, say, the US, because the game really goes hand in hand with that sort of TV viewing experience and some of these other things. And that's one of the reasons that fantasy football works so well, is because those guys have sort of mastered that TV broadcasting angle. And now they show games on Thursday, sometimes on Saturday, on Sunday, and Monday. And I think what they've realized is basically they were using up all their content on Sunday, right? And that's sort of a sunk cost. But if they distribute that over 4 days, they're going to multiply their revenue by, let's say, 2.5x, but the cost remains the same. And so Premier League is sort of in its infancy as far as TV rights and these sorts of deals go, but they're going to realize sort of these same things. And we want to grow with, we want Togga to basically grow with that experience.
Yeah, we did to the data. There's reasons why we go for them first, but ultimately we want to be all. We want to work for all the major leagues. And we want to be. Soccer is a worldwide game. We want to be a worldwide company. We want to do it for all the leagues, and that's our goal, and we hope to get there.
Yeah, I guess the other consideration is obviously localization. If you really want to reach, all those worldwide soccer fans, some of them may not speak English.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we actually consider that. It's actually on our roadmap with the language support.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it soon, but it's going to happen at some point as we go further afield. Yeah. Cool. What else?
I'm not sure. Just going to ask a little bit more about the Opta. To get all that data, to get it started, did you have to contact their customer service to get it, sign that contract and whatnot to get the data?
Yeah, I mean, we started from the ground up. Like basically, if you get on their website and start with the public number and get the right contact from there, and then it just becomes sort of an ongoing communication process.
Yeah, because I mean, to me, I think the key, at least to me, is the Opta, the content you're providing, because you're differentiating your fantasy soccer from the current ones, which are based purely on goals, right? You're basing your score on the number of tackles, saves, and those are provided from Opta.
Right.
So they have a lot of leverage too in terms of, your success is really dependent on how much data they can provide you.
Yeah, and so there's no question about that. There are other providers. There's one called Stats Inc. They're very, very expensive. And that's one of the reasons we didn't go with them. But there are other providers, and granted, it would take there's some switching cost if we were to switch, but at the same time, it's not.
Yeah. And Opta, they're in the business of selling data.
Yeah.
And we're in the business of buying it, so it's a good fit for each other.
Did you find like open source or openly available data similar to Opta that would be cheaper?
No open source. I don't believe that there's any open source data.
The effort to literally catalog all this data is a monstrous proportions.
Maybe that can be your future growth area way down the line, is you can crowdsource all of the data. Once you have billions of players on the platform, you can just have them.
Wikipedia of data capture from games, right?
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
that.
good idea.
Yeah.
That's cool. What else can we share?
How long have you been working on this project?
We've been working on it. Well, so we started talking about it at the end of last year. We've been sort of heads down for 3 or 4 months. Spence has been helping us for on the order of 2.5 months full time, I think, and maybe a little bit part time before that. And so I had, with my previous game studio, I had a code base that I've been able to leverage for some of this stuff. So I think that helped us get off to a bit of a faster start. Spence has sort of been instrumental in helping bring some cohesion to the display. And then once we have time to sort of
Catch our breath.
and have some graphic design focus, we'll be able to make everything pretty.
I have a question
Yeah,
about
go
the
ahead.
scoring system. So you have multiple players in multiple positions and multiple ways to score. You need multiple players in the positions. Are there different scaling factors for each position for each type of scoring? Or could the players have similar scores per game, like the goalies hit more? I'm sorry about this.
No, it's a great
It's just
question.
interesting because this is like I kind of like the mathy.
Yeah.
You should join our game and play it. I think I would enjoy it, actually.
That's what I like about it. But anyway, that's because it just seems like, if goalies get, points per block or something, it seems like you want 10 goalies. Anyway, go ahead.
It's a great question. So we do tailor the points on a per position basis. And so some of the stats are the same across position, but some of the points are different based on position. So I don't know if that answers
No, that's basically what I was wondering.
And so we actually, if you go to playtogga.com and click on scoring, you can actually see a grid of which position scores what for which event.
Do goalies get bonus points if they kick something all the way across the field to get a goal, or is that just a goal?
It's a good question.
It's just a goal.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think it's just a goal.
It is just a goal. Although that would be a remarkable goal. They should get like twice as many points for that.
Yeah, we might have to change our scoring system if that.
Well, that's like, the basketball, the last second.
Yeah.
Shot across. They should get like 4 points.
Yeah.
But we actually have like quite a few, what was it, 16 different points for scoring up, like individual events. I think something like that. It's like around 16, I think. And so crosses, everything else. And there's a lot of little metrics in there. So when you're watching a game, there's, you've got a stake in this thing. It's just about goals. It's about how the game is played. That's a cool thing to see.
You could also do deals where you tie in with companies over in Europe or whatever part of the world, and they can do broadcasting updates. Like, it blew my mind when I saw DirecTV, they had that thing where, you're watching 8 football games and, they're in the red zone, and then all of a sudden it's like that. It's like, that's mind-blowing, that kind of stuff.
So yeah, we hope to actually do some visualization type stuff where we show, because we'll have the data coming in where we actually show
how
the actual games, and they have it like on ESPN for NFL games and probably other sports, although like NFL would be the only ones I've seen. But I think there are some interesting visualization stuff we can do for actually like, 2 real teams versus each other.
Do you guys have fundings from other people, or just your own savings?
Yeah.
So it's a great question. So we're actually in the process of raising around the funding right now. And we've actually got some pretty good interest out there. It's fun to see folks come on board. And people that care about soccer or people that love the idea of the market opportunity, we've got a pretty good pipeline in place.
Where do you go?
But so far, we've actually just bootstrapped ourselves. And so the money we put in is our own money. And like Gary said earlier, when you're an entrepreneur, you have this choice. Do I go make money for somebody else, or do I spend money on myself? I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started companies before. I've raised money before. And so I'm lucky enough that I can continue to make these choices for my life. And I think Chris and Scott and other guys feel the same way. And so that's how we hope to raise around.
So how do you go finding that you're investors right now? I guess what method? I'm just curious.
That's a really broad question. I think
do you go on a website like crowdsourcing, or do you have
A lot of it is networking. And so, I've been in the industry for, 20 years. Spence has been in the industry for, not necessarily like the fantasy sports industry, but you know,
software funding software program.
And so, you know, through that time, right, you just develop contacts and,
you know, Chris says right, it's relationships. You know, you have to understand that most of it is you have to have an opportunity to be able to believe in, but you also have to know whether to have capital and a propensity to want to invest. So a lot of your time is spent building relationships with people or tapping the network of people you know, old bosses, old people you've worked with before, folks that have invested in you in the past. These are the folks that we talk to first. You know. There's a lot of resources out there for entrepreneurs that are new. Capital Factor is a fantastic resource. That Angel List is a fantastic resource. And there's mentors out there that raise money as well too. We'll talk about that. But that's some of the 0 to 1 stuff you got to do. You know, is to meet individuals and network that way.
And if you don't know the people who are the investors, maybe you at least know someone who knows them and can introduce you or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so that way it's sort of a more personal connection, not just this random inquiry out of the blue kind of thing. So anyway. Yeah, I guess any other last questions with these guys before we let them go? Okay, well, I guess thanks so much.
Thank you so much, guys.